Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Welcome to Dev with Excel. Alright, so in this video we are going to be solving the last part of the last exercise in our part 2, right? So that's exercise 2.20. In the previous video we solved exercise 2.19, right? So if you've not seen it, you may just want to check my playlist and then check it out, right? So we were able to solve exercise 2.19. In this video, we are solving exercise 2.20, which is the step 3 for data for countries, right? So here we are going to be working with a weather map, right? So here, when we type in a country as a query, we are expected to see the weather condition, the weather data of that country, right? So it won't just be the languages, the capital, the area like we did in the previous videos, but also the weather information of that country. All right, so going into the code implementation, let's see what we have. All right, so let's run the set of folder we are currently working with, which is step 3, right? So I'm going to minimize this part here and also do the same here. Let's see what is returned in the browser. Okay, so here we can see that this is let's write a country. Let's put in a country name. Okay, so let's just put CAN and then let's click on Canada to see what is returned. All right, so here we have capital area, languages, flag, and then coat of arms. Now, this is the part we left off in the previous video, right? So we are going to be updating our code in order to help us to also return the weather data, right? So if it's sunny, we are going to have the information rendered on the browser that it's sunny. If it's rainy, it's going to be displayed on the browser. All right, so entering or going into the code implementation, what we need to do is we need to create a function. Just as we created a function for the fetch country here, we also need to create a function to fetch the weather map, right? So before we do that, we need to create two states here, right? One for the weather and then one for the API error. That's should there be an error, right? So let's say const, let's call this weather, and then let's call the next one set weather. So we have something like this. So the next thing we want to do is this is going to be, we are going to set this to null. Let's set this to null, and let's do the same for the API error. So here we say API error, comma, set API error. So we set this to null as well, right? So let's just put null here. So that's that. So let's save this. So here we have the weather state and also we have the API error state. All right. So like I said, the next we want to work on is we want to work on the function that is going to handle the weather map, right? The function that helps us to get the weather map. So what we can do here is we are going to start, let's say const, what should we call it? Let's call it fetch weather data. Okay, fetch weather data, and then we do something like this. All right, so what we need to do here is we need to use the try and catch block, right? So that we can catch any errors that might surface. So using the try catch block, let's work on the error first. So here we can just say console log, or rather console error, and let's put in error fetching the weather data, right? Then after that we put a comma and say error dot data. All right, so this is going to show in the developers tool, right? Should there be an error underneath it, we can just set the weather to null here. This set weather here, we can just copy it and then set it to null. also should there be an error, right? Then we can also do something like this. We can say set API error, and then let's give it a value. Let's say error, error to fetch, or rather fail to fetch weather data. We can say please try again, or we can just leave this way. You can choose to write the you can choose to write whatever you want to put here, right? That best describes the error, right? So this is what I can think of right now to add here. Okay, now going into the code logic proper. What we want to do here is we want to use axios to get the endpoint that helps us to get the weather data from the website, right? Now going to this part here, the instruction. Let's go to exercise 2.20. So here we can see that we're advised, or there's this suggestion for us to use this these sites, right, to get our weather data, right? So if you have any other that you think you can use that is better than this, fine. But the platform here suggests that we use this, right, to get the API key actually. All right, so what we want to do is we want to get the API key, which we are going to be working with. And how do we get the API key? This is how we can get it. Let's go into this website. Okay, so this is openweathermap.org. So you come here to sign in. I am currently signed in. Now, when you sign in, what you want to do to get the API key is you are going to click on this drop down and then go to my API keys. When you get to my API keys here, I'm not going to click on this because if I click on this, it's going to expose my keys, right? So I'm just trying to be safe here, right? I hope you understand. All right, so when you click on my API keys here, it's going to show the API. It's going to give you the option to generate an API key and then also show you the default API key and also the existing API keys you have already, which is why I don't want to click on it. So let me show you what I'm saying. I have a screenshot already that can help us demonstrate that. So the screenshot is here. So here I'm just going to click on open weather map here, and this is exactly what you are going to get when you click on this drop down here. You get this, right? So if you don't want to work with the default API key, you simply just come here and then give your API a key name and you click on generate. Once that is done, the key name shows up here and the API key shows up here, which are what I have here, right? So that's that. That's how to get your API key from this site, openweathermap.org. All right, so I'm going to close this. I hope that was clear. All right, so the next thing we want to do is, okay, let me go back to the browser that shows our rendered code, right? All right, so here we want to come back to our try. So we are going to be working with the API key, right? So what we want to do here is we are going to say const, let's call this weather response equals. Now we are going to be using axios. We imported it at the top of the code, right? So we are going to say axios.get. Then inside this, we are going to be using a template string and then putting the endpoint to the URL, right? Okay, so here is what we can do. How can we get the necessary endpoints that should be here? Now, here is it. We go to that same site. That's the open weather map site, right? So here we click on API here. When we click on API here, we come to API doc. Now, this is going to show us the endpoints that we can use to work or to solve this exercise. So here we have it here. It says HTTPS and also we have it up to this point. So here it's going to be accepting the latitude, the longitude, the path. This part, the exclude part is optional, then the API key. So let's just copy this, and then let's come back to our code and then let's paste it here. Then let's save. All right, now this is saved, right? Okay, now we can see here that we are going to be needing some parameters. So here we are going to be putting the dollar sign, since we are working with a template string, right? The dollar sign here also, and also we are going to be adding the dollar sign here, right? And now this part here, oh sorry, this part here is simply going to be our API key, right? Which we are going to define very soon. All right, so now let's define the API key. Above it, what we can say is we say const API key is equal to, we say import dot meta dot env dot write some key, right? So we write some key. Let me save this. Now, what this means is there's an error somewhere. Why is this not saving properly? Okay, this. Okay, so it's expecting us to have. Let us close this gap here, or rather, let's just come here and then let's copy this API key, since that's what is expected, and then let's remove this once here. Let's paste it here. All right, the error, the lines are gone, right? Now, what this part means is we are trying to get this write some key from a .env file. This is what this means, right? And looking at my setup folder, I already have the .env file in the root folder here. This .env file is directly in the root folder, and my root folder here is step 3, right? So in your root folder, just simply put the .env file and then write something like this, which I'm going to show you next. Now, this is exactly what you are supposed to do. I can't create another .env file again and then show you. And also, I don't want to click on this .env file because it's going to expose my API key. So what I am going to do is I am going to write another .env file .example and then show you exactly what to do. So inside my root folder, I'll simply just create a new file and call it .env .env .example, something like this. So this is just an example, right? So inside this, I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to copy this, write some key, paste it here, and then put in the API key here. For example, here if we have in the exercise we have here, we have an example of the API key here. Let's assume this is the API key we have. So we copy this and then we paste it here. Right. Now, this is just for demonstration's sake. This is not a valid API key. And also, this is not supposed to be inside the .env.example. Now, what you are going to do is you copy this, put it into your .env file, which is in the root folder, and then change this API key to the API key gotten when you come here, right? So here, I think I showed us earlier. All right, here. So you copy the API key generated here and then you paste it into this part here with no strings, right? Just this way. All right, so having done that, I think I can just delete this because we don't need this in our code. All right, so the next thing we want to do is, okay, let me just say this. We can see that this is version 3.0, right? When I tried to work with this version, I was not able to get any weather map data returned. So I had to revert back to using 2.5, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm simply just going to copy this and then put it in a variable. Let me just cut it and then put it in a variable. Let's call the variable, let's call it const version 3, right? So what I actually used is version 2.5, which I'm going to show us next. So what I am going to do is I'm going to duplicate this one and then edit it. All right, so let's call this version 2.5. Let's say 2_5, and then we are going to be changing a few things here. Let's comment this version 3 first. Then here we change this 3.0 to 2.5. Then we don't have one call here. Rather, we have weather. Then after weather, we have the question mark. Then we have Q. Then let's delete every other thing we have here up to ampersand APPID, right? So after Q, we are going to have the equal to. Then we have the dollar sign, and then inside the dollar sign, we are going to be having capital. Right now, this is the endpoint given for version 2.5, right? Now, after having the capital here, we are having the ampersand APPID equals dollar sign API key. Then after that, what we want to do next is we are going to write the ampersand, and inside the curly brace, okay, we don't need the curly brace here. You write unit and then say equals metric. All right, so let's save. Now, what we now need to pass inside this get is simply this variable name, which is v2_5. So we paste this. All right, sorry. Let's copy this properly, and then let's paste it here. All right, awesome. Okay, so that's that. So the next thing we want to do now is we need to use this weather response variable. So how do we use it? This is how we use it. Underneath it, we simply just set weather. Don't forget that set weather is the function that handles the weather state here. So we come down here and say set weather and then pass in the weather response in it. Then say dot data because we want to return the data of the weather response itself. Then after that and underneath it, we are just going to set the API error to null, right? So after doing that, what we need to do next is okay, so we've not used the weather itself and the API error states. Okay, so let's see how we can use them. So inside the fetch country, there is something we need to do, right? You can see here that we returned, or we actually set countries and then we passed in the response.data. The next thing we can do here is we can just set selected country as well. Set selected countries, and then we place or we pass the null value inside of it, and also set weather, and then also do likewise, pass the null value into it. But it doesn't stop there. The next you want to do is you want to write a condition to check if the response data that we are getting here, right? If the length is 1, if we are having just one data, then we are going to pass in the capital into the fetch weather data function. So this is what I mean. We simply say if, right, if response dot data dot length is 1. Now here is what we want to do. We want to say response dot data square bracket 0 dot capital, and we are going to be assigning this to a variable which we call Let's call this capital. So we can see that this response.data square bracket 0 dot capital, it represents the capital of the country, right? So what can we do next? The next thing we can do is we are going to pass this value into the fetch weather data function. So we simply do something like this, and then we put capital here. Let's save this and see what we have. All right, so we have something like this now, right? So our code is gradually coming to life, right? So the next thing we want to do is, I think we are through with this part. Let's be sure. Okay, weather API. All right, so the next thing we want to do is okay, so I think the next thing we want to do is we want to handle the button. Yes, so we can see that this button, when we click on it, let's go to our front end. Let's write, let's put CAN. Let's click on Vatican City. So we can see that when we click on this button, what it gives us is just this, right? But we want to have it in a way that when we click on the button here, the weather data also is going to be returned, right? So let's go ahead to handle this button. Let's update it. So what can we do? How can we update this button? So let's just do something like this. Let's bring it to the next line. And then what we want to do here is we have this set selected country and countries passed into it. Now we want to have the fetch weather data and then pass in the capital. So how can we get the capital that is going to be passed into the fetch weather data? We simply say const capital is equal to country dot capital, right? So here now we can now easily pass in this capital into the fetch weather data. So let's copy this fetch weather data and then let's place it here. And then inside of it, we put in the capital value. All right, so let's save this. And also, there is something we need to adjust here. Here we can see that the capital here is an argument, right? Therefore, we need to pass it here as a parameter. So let's save this. So our code is gradually coming up. Okay, so let's test it at this point. Let's write CAN and then let's click on Central African Republic. Okay, so nothing shows up for the weather map yet. All right, so there's a reason why that is happening. There's a reason why that is happening. Okay, so let's check this part here now. Next. So this is inside the return statement. I think this part is okay. This part seems to be okay also. This part seems to be okay as well. For the selected country, okay, yes. So here we are going to be adding the weather map data. We can see that we have every other data here, the coat of arm, flag, language, area capital, except the weather map data. That's why it's not showing up here. Now let's add it now. Okay, so here is what we can do. Let's begin by just writing the name, right? So let's first of all say p tag and then let's call it weather map data. So let's save this. Let's click on Dominican Republic. So here we can see we have weather map data now, right? So the next we want to do is we now properly want to return the data. How do we do that? How do we do that? Now, we are going to start by writing the curly brace, which is almost the same thing as what we've been doing all the while, right? Now, inside this curly brace, what we need to do is we want to say if weather is true, that means if the weather state is true, and of course here it is true, it exists here, right? So we say if weather is true. Now this is just another way of doing the conditional statement, right? Then we use the double ampersand, and then we say we want to return something, right? Here we are going to be using the implicit return statement. Then inside of this, we simply just write a div. So we say div, something like this. Let's close it. All right, so we have a div here. So inside of this div, we are going to be writing the weather data proper. So let's write an h3 first. So we have an h3, and then let's write something like weather first. Weather. Let's save this. Let's click on American Samoa. Okay, so it's not showing up yet, right? So we have weather map data, but that is not showing up yet. Okay, no problem. It's going to show up very soon. All right, so what we want to do next is we want to target the capital, right? So let's do something like this. Let's put a curly brace, and then let's say selected country dot capital square bracket 0. So we copy this, and then we paste it here and say dot capital square bracket 0. So let's save this. Let's refresh this, and then let's type in CAN. Let's click on Canada. Okay, this is not showing. um I think there is something we need to have done that we've not done. Let's go to the top of our code. Let's confirm if we are properly doing everything right. Let's go to the part that handles the button. So here we have the handle country button. The country is passed into it. We have the set selected country, const capital equals to country dot capital. Okay, I think this part is okay. um Here we have write some key. Yes. And then here we have set weather response dot data. Okay, let's go up. Let's give this one some space. If this is this, okay. Okay, let's try something like this. And then put a square bracket 0. Let's save this. Let's see if this one works. Okay, doesn't work yet. Okay, I think there's something wrong with our code. Let's go to the top. um Const error. Okay, so we have this here. This is a button. um Something is happening. Okay, so I think what we can just do is let's add the API error to be very sure of what's happening. So we can just come underneath this part here, this curly brace, and then let's do something like this. Let's say API error, and so inside of this, and we want to return the error itself. So inside a p tag, we just return the error, right? So that's API error. Let's save this. Let's refresh this, and then let's put in CAN. Let's click on this. Okay, so let's go to the developers too. Okay, so we are having this. Okay, so I really don't know why the weather map API is not still showing up. Okay, so what we can do is this. Excuse me, let me just try something. um I just want to check my env, if I have my file properly, if I have my API key properly placed. Okay, yes, it's properly placed. Okay, so I don't know why this is not working at this point. I can't tell. Okay, let me keep on checking. The issue should be somewhere around here. um Weather map data. So we have the curly brace weather and this div, and we close the div. Okay, this is a round bracket. So outside this round bracket, we closed the div. Okay. Okay, I think we can just let's try to check for some more data and see what exactly is going on. uh, okay, all right, so let's use a p tag here, and here let's try to check the temperature. So let's just say weather dot main dot temperature. Let's save this, let's refresh here, and then let's right can, let's click on this. So let's see if we have this returned. No, where is this issue coming from? Axios.get. Okay, I think, oh, okay. So for the fetch weather data, I think we should make this an asynchronous operation. So let's add the async there, and then we're also going to add the await for the axios here. So let's put await here. So let's save this. Hopefully this works fine. Let me write CAN again, and then let's click on show country data. Oh, awesome. So we can see here that we have the country, we have the weather data returning here as 14.03. Now let's make everything look neat. Now let's go back to this part of the code. So here we want to say, we want to check the weather in a particular country, right? So we say weather in. So let's save this, and also the temperature of the country. Let's just come here and write temperature. So we do something like this, temperature, then something like this. So let's save. Let's click on American Samoa. Awesome. So here we can see it is saying weather in Pago Pago, temperature 21.19, right? So our code is beginning to make sense. So let's just add the degrees Celsius there. So I'm just going to come here, cut this off, and then come to this part here, and then add a big C, right? So this represents the degrees Celsius. So let's save this, and then let's click on this part here. So we can see here that we have temperature 37.8 degrees Celsius. That's the weather in Bangui, right? And this Bangui is the capital of Central African Republic. All right, so let's add more weather data. The next one we want to add is, let's add humidity using the p tag humidity. We want to know how humid the country is. So we say weather dot main dot humidity. So let's save this. So let's just keep adding them, then we check everything all at once. Let's work for the wind speed. Wind speed, wind speed should be weather dot wind dot speed. All right, so let's also check the weather degree. Weather degree. Then inside that, let's put weather dot weather 0 icon. Okay, so here this is going to give us the icon, right? The icon. Let's even save and see. Let's click on Vatican City. Okay, so the icon here, it is just in text. Okay, so we are going to fix that. We are going to fix that, right? So it is telling us that it's currently 01 degree. I don't think we actually need this part, right? Because this 01D does not really explain much, right? So we can just remove that, and then instead let's replace this with description, right? So we can just write weather description, and then inside this icon here we replace it with description. So let's copy this description and then let's place it here, removing the uppercase D and replacing it with a smaller case d. So the next thing we are concerned with now is the weather icon. Yes, so let's work on the weather icon proper. So what we can do here is this. Let's save this and see how far our code is going. So here we can see we have temperature, humidity, wind speed, weather description. Here it says clear sky, and then weather icon. Now let's write a code in such a way that the icon is going to be displayed in the browser, right? So here what we can do is we are going to do something like this. Still using the curly brace, we say weather dot weather square bracket 0 not o dot icon. And so this is just trying to say that if there is this is what we want to do, right? So and round brackets, that's we want to work with the implicit return, right? Then we are going to be using an image tag. So we say img. It's not automatically closing it for us. So we just do something like this, img, right? So inside this now, we are concerned with the attributes in the img. The first attribute we want to work with is the auth. So we are going to be working with the auth. Just in case the icon doesn't show up, the description in the auth is going to help us, right, to tell us exactly what we are supposed to do. So here we just say weather icon. All right. So let's work on the other attribute, which is SRC. Now, this SRC, this is what we are concerned with. We are going to be passing in a form of URL, right? And it's going to be this. Passing it into the template string, we say http colon double slash open weather map.org. Then we say slash img slash wn slash dollar sign with the curly brace. So inside this curly brace, we are going to call weather dot weather, yes, then square bracket 0, then dot icon. Then outside that, we are going to say dot png, because we have to put an extension, right? A file extension. So we are going to save this. Now this is what we have. Let's see if this is going to work properly. Let's click on Mexico. Okay, so this is the weather icon. Let's select Vatican City. This is the icon as well. Okay, let's select Canada. Okay, awesome. So we can see that the icon is different for Canada. Let's try another country. Let's say Nigeria. So we have this, right? Okay, so I think with this, we've actually come to the end of our code implementation, because let's go back to the instruction. It says add to the view showing the data of a single country the weather report for the capital of that country. All right, so we can see that we are concerned with the capital of the country. That's why we have been using capital, right? There are dozens of providers for weather data. One suggested API is this. Okay, so I think we've been able to successfully solve this exercise. But I noticed something in our code implementation, right? In the front end, rather, if I type a country name fully, it doesn't return anything to us except if we click on the show country data, right? So we need to fix this. So how do we fix this? What we can do is this. We can copy the entire part we have here. Let's copy everything we actually have here. Let's do that. So let's copy everything here, and then let's paste it underneath it. Now, since we want to target just one country now, what we can do is we are going to change this one to countries dot length equals 1. So something like this. Where do we have that? Something like this. Countries dot length equals 1. And then for the selected country here is going to become country square brackets 0, or rather countries square bracket 0. So we copy this and then we paste it into so many parts here. So we copy this and then we paste it. Where else do we have that? Okay, yeah, so we have this here, and also okay, so here is what we want to do. Let's take it back to the way it was, right? So what we want to do is we want to copy this entire part actually. This entire part actually up to this part. We copy it, that's Control C, and then we paste it. All right, so let me save. So I have currently done that and the code breaks, right? All right, the code is expected to break because this is now doubled, right? So now what we can do is here is what we can do. Let me take this back again. Let me save this. Okay. Um Selected country. Okay, I think we are supposed to copy it from here. Let's copy it from here. Let's copy it from here. And then let's paste it here. Let's save. Okay, so the code does not break now. So here we are going to change the selected country to countries dot length equals 1. Then here we change this to countries square bracket 0, right? So we copy this and we paste it here. We paste it here as well. We paste it here. So anywhere we see selected countries, we replace it with country square bracket 0. Something like this. Something like this. Something like this. And I think that's all. All right, so let's save this and let's go back to our front end, to the browser, and then let's type in CAN Canada in full. All right, so this is fixed now. We can see that just by typing a single country, the whole information comes up, right? And also when we don't type the country in full, you can easily just choose from among the returned countries and then click on show country. Everything also still appears. All right, so let's also try for Nigeria. All right, so everything works fine. So let's have Niger. So we have Nigeria and Niger. Let's click on show country data. So this works fine, right? Now this is a long one. It's actually a tough one, right? So at this point, I believe this was helpful. If you think this was helpful, please do give this video a like and subscribe to my channel, and see you in the next video. Bye.